Marketer of the Day, episode 549, Respectology. Separate your business from your competition and beef up your customer support interactions with Brian Baker.
Hey everyone, and thanks for listening to the podcast. We're talking with Brian Baker, and Brian is an award-winning sales executive, a trainer, and a speaker, and an award-winning basketball coach, and he's the founder and CEO of the Sacramento-based Respectology, Inc., which is a solutions-based company, and they help businesses and individuals position themselves for success through the use of social and emotional intelligence coaching and training. And Brian has been a keynote speaker at all kinds of cool places, and he's accomplished quite a bit. So we're going to hear all about Brian's story, what he's all about, what you need to know. So Brian, glad to be talking to you.
Nice to talk to you as well, Robert.
Well, cool. So, I mean, you're a business owner. You do all this this cool stuff. I mean, how did you get started? What was the jumping off point for you?
Well, it's very interesting, man. I've actually owned several businesses throughout my life. Done some consulting with the hospitality industry. Actually owned a gourmet popcorn business for a couple of years with my wife, all during the time that I was actually working for someone else. I spent 25 years in corporate America with AT&T and Bank of America. And so I made the decision a few months ago, about 8 months ago, to launch Respectology because I was really ready for a change in my life and taking it in a different direction. And so a lot of the stuff that I do with Respectology, I've been doing for a number of years in corporate America and my previous consulting business. And I just decided that it was time to spread my wings, unlock the golden handcuffs, and move forward and do my own thing.
Nice. Now we're talking. Yeah, it seems like it's easy to rest on our laurels and say, "Oh, well, I've done pretty well. I'm just gonna keep on coasting." But you said I'm gonna shake things up. I'm gonna go and jump ahead and do that next step. And so you mentioned you have this company called Respectology. So I mean, what the heck is Respectology anyway? Like, what is this concept here?
So I do training and coaching and speaking in the area of civility, manners, courtesy, respect, and a lot of the foundational attributes of all of those things are social and emotional intelligence, and things like self-awareness and the ability to be aware of other people, self-management, relationship management. They're all the foundational values of the things that I just talked about. And so I made a decision that, I was going to go out and work with businesses and individuals on how they can separate themselves from their competition by incorporating these types of values into their customer experiences, and also from an individual perspective, how they can use these concepts to separate themselves from the competition if they're looking to make some career changes, if they're interviewing, if they're looking to make moves internally within the jobs that they're on. How do you position yourself to be looked upon favorably over everyone else? And so that's what Respectology does. It's really about improving relationships and improving the world one interaction at a time. And that's the goal, man, and that's the journey that we're on.
Well, awesome. So civility, awareness, courtesy, respect, self-awareness. And so, I mean, when you mention some of those things, what comes to mind is that, sometimes, and we've all dealt with people like that who are maybe insecure and that manifest themselves as being rude, or sometimes people just don't understand our situation when a little bit of understanding would go a long way. And then sometimes you see, in like a customer service situation where sometimes the ball gets dropped, or sometimes the person on the other end of customer service, if there's a bad system there, they might be a little mean or just not helpful. So is any of that on the right track? I guess I'm looking for what's the big problem that we're solving here? Why is this so important?
Well, yeah, you are on the right track. I mean, you have a situation going on in our society that where incivility is on the rise. There's a study called Civility in America. It's been taking place for about 8 years now, and I've been following it pretty much the whole time. And the last study that was done in 2017 talked about incivility being at a crisis level. About 75% of those surveyed thought that incivility had reached a crisis level in this country. And in business, you're looking at the same trends, that people are losing business and they're losing opportunities to serve their customers because of uncivil interactions that they're having with representatives of companies. And so, with that trend being in place, you have a lot of companies that just aren't culturally aware of how to train and coach and position their employees to treat their customers like guests. And if you look at the word guest versus the word customer, a customer denotes an exchange of goods and services for money, where a guest is somebody that you just invite in to your home, right? And so if you can get people within the company that you run or the company that you own, if you can get to the point where you're treating folks like guests and not like customers, that kicks the experience level up a great deal. We have a lot of examples, Robert, that are going on all around us. Unfortunately, the one most recent that we can look at is Starbucks, right? You got a situation there where guys come into the store, there for 2 minutes, don't buy anything, they get the police called on them. Those are really things that are avoidable with just some conversation, a little bit of situational awareness, a little bit of behavioral self-control. You could throw a bunch of concepts and competencies in there that can prevent these things from happening. Starbucks is not the only example. There's several of them going around, and it's not that difficult to change that around a little bit with a little bit of conscientiousness.
So how would we begin to solve that sort of problem? Because it seems like, like that Starbucks situation shows that we have to be careful all the time. In just a couple of minutes, this huge crazy thing could happen. So if we say, want to have this business that treats customers as guests, then how do we begin tackling that problem?
Absolutely. Good question. So, I mentioned that I had a background in corporate America. For several years in corporate America, I did corporate training. And one of the things that I recognized through the years about training can be a really wonderful thing if an organization has the structure in place to follow up and make sure that the training that has taken place actually sticks. The difference with a lot of companies that are successful at it versus the companies that are not is that, training takes place, people go back to their silos, they get comfortable, and in the short period of time, a couple of days or week or so, it's business as usual. The difference in the companies that are being able to provide the training and then have success moving forward is that you couple that with coaching that comes along after the training to make sure that what it is that's been emphasized during the training actually sticks, right? So the difference with coaching is it's a developmental process, and it's designed to help teams and it helps individuals sustain and achieve performances that are linked to the goals of whatever the organization has. So the key is do the training, but make sure that you follow up and do some ongoing coaching in order to make sure that the goal that you want to achieve is followed through on.
That makes perfect sense. It makes me think about how when I was a kid, I might have learned long division or something like that. But then if I were to go and jump back into long division now, I'd say I don't know if I trust myself to remember 100% of what I learned. I might need a little bit of a refresher there. And so since we're talking about getting people to to do this training and this coaching and just change their way of doing business, do you have any interesting sort of before and after case study sort of stories where you had a client or someone come to you and they had a problem and you sort of set them straight and worked your magic?
Yeah, so, actually I did some work about a year ago with a dental office. They had approached me. I had known someone that worked in that office. They knew the work that I did. They knew what my background was. They were having problems with their customer service with their frontline employees, and they had a lot of a lack of continuity, if you will, with the message that they were trying to drive home to their patients. There were people that weren't being able to communicate clearly. They weren't being able to do the follow-ups with the appointments. You had a lot of appointments getting canceled simply because there was no clarity in terms of the communication. You had a lot of infighting going on in the dentist office. So they asked me to come in to see if I could put together a training workshop on communication. And so I came in, did a workshop on communication, but I dove a little bit deeper in that. We got deeper into relationship management. One of the things that I discovered once I got in there was that the leadership in the dental office, the partners in the dental office, they were on different pages. And I did not realize that until I started doing some discovery prior to doing the training that I put in place for them. Well, once I kind of found out through the discovery portion, I actually required them to come to the training, not just the frontline employee. And so what ended up happening was that through the couple of days that I spent with them, the leadership of the office realized the culture that they had put in place, everyone was confused because the leadership was on a different page. We got into things like building trust. We got into things like teaming and collaboration, building bonds, conflict management. We just dove deep into it. So I originally came in to do something on communication, two-way communication, the ability to listen deeply and listen effectively before, jumping in and answering questions that you really didn't understand, confirm for understanding, stuff like that. And it morphed into an entirely different thing where it ended up where the leadership in the office made the decision that they had to go ahead and change what they were doing. So it fell downwards into the rest of the organization. So it was interesting. People did not realize the issues that they have until I was able to come in and kind of show them. It starts at the top. They needed to define what they wanted to do. They needed to align their people with what they wanted to do. And then later on, they need to refine it, make sure that it continues to be the way that they want it to be. So that's just a sample, an example of something that I've done with an organization to get them to get on the right page and to understand managing relationships is a little bit deeper than just telling people what to do.
Yeah, and it seems like, so what's interesting about that is it sounds like with your discovery process there, where you went in and kind of customized your training, is that normal? Because it seems like as you're describing that, it seems like your process maybe seems like more above and beyond what some other organization might do, where maybe someone else might just give like the usual canned everything, but it sounds like you went in there and did a little something extra to make sure that it was being saying the right things to the right people.
Yeah, I mean, for folks that really want to be effective in this, that's something that you really, really have to do. I have a certification, a train the trainer certification. And one of the things that I learned upon going through that program a number of years ago was that you need to make sure that as you're developing and designing training, you got to be specific about what it is that you want to train on. You got to understand the objectives of your training. A lot of people, you're right, they don't do that. They go in and do something canned. They say, hey, I have a customer service training that I can come in and do for you, but not necessarily knowing what the objectives of the organization are. They think that they have this training that will work for everything. And so I learned a long time ago to go in and really kind of find out what it is that the folks want to accomplish in the training that you're going to provide to them, and then you can design it and develop it to be more effective. One of the things, Robert, that's very, very interesting, and I don't think a lot of companies and businesses are aware of this, folks can say, hey, we're having problems, our people aren't performing, and here's the issue, here's what we think the issue is. And the fact of the matter is you can help individuals get better. You can't necessarily change them, but one of the things that you can do to help performance get better is that you can begin to change the environment, right? And then all of a sudden, when the environment is changed, and the culture is changed and the direction is changed, then you can work with people to fit in to the new environment and to the new culture that's being created. And so it's one of the things that I've always done. The training has to be designed and developed specifically each and every time for what it is the organization wants to achieve.
Well, great. So when you're going and doing that fact finding to make sure that the environment is good, what does that process look like? Like how long does it take? Like what do you sort of do to dive deep into all that?
Well, so I always look at the industry that I'm working in. I look at to gather as much information I can about the competitors in the industry, that the company that I'm going to do the work for, what is it that they are doing to be successful. I dive deep into the company itself to kind of find out what have they done in the past that's worked, where did they start falling down and stumbling, when did they realize that perhaps that they had some sort of an issue. If the situation allows me to, I will work to talk to some of the employees within the company as I'm developing the training, the designing the training, to kind of find out, what is the mindset and the thought process of the people that work within the organization. So you try to gather up as much information as you can. Usually you're able to do that within a couple of days to begin to put it all together. And so that's how I have worked, and that's how I've worked effectively in being able to create training programs. I always pitch my coaching services after my training programs, as I said, to make sure that we're continuing to drive the behavior that's needed. Sometimes it's with the employees. Sometimes it's with the leadership of the company, that the ongoing coaching is there. And so it really is a fantastic way to make sure you're being efficient and people are getting the bang for their buck. Let me also add one other thing, Robert, that I do as a social and emotional intelligence training coach. One of the things that I use, one of the tools that I have at my disposal, and I haven't always had this, it wasn't until I got certified in this area where this was at my disposal. I have an emotional intelligence assessment available to me that I provide for people to take. And what it does, it allows me to gather with pinpoint accuracy information on 26 different competencies that make up our social and emotional intelligence. And so this assessment allows me to see where people scored, where they're measured in these various areas. And then it really does give me the opportunity to focus in and concentrate on those areas where they have growth opportunities to improve their social and emotional intelligence. So that's something that I've added to my business in the last year, and it really is proven to be helpful because you're not wasting a lot of time trying to figure out what the problem is with an individual. You kind of already know where their strengths lie and where their opportunities lie, and so you can work directly with them on those things.
Awesome. Well, those are two really great lessons there in that it pays to dive in and figure out what someone else's mindset and thought process is, and why go to all that effort of trying to feel someone out or make these decisions based on what you see. Have them take the test so that way you can make those decisions based on the data. So when you say that you help out these companies where, if the employees aren't performing the way they should or if the leadership is lacking, how do these organizations even know that there's a problem and that they need to come to you? Because it seems like some companies might have this problem and they might not even know what the problem is or what the cause is.
Well, it's interesting. So a lot of the clientele that I receive, Robert, is from speaking to business roundtables and various organizations. I actually did a talk at a Rotary Club about a month ago, and there was a woman that approached me after the meeting, and she just said, I know we have problems, but I don't know what they are. And the question that I asked her was, well, are you meeting the objectives that your employees have that you have set forth for them? And she said, well, that may be part of the problem. We don't really have clear objectives. So I think the purpose of me sharing that with you is I think there's a lot of companies that are out here that don't really have clear objectives that they have for their employees. They just know that whatever sales numbers, if we're talking about a sales organization, whatever sales numbers need to be met, that's what needs to be met. But how are the folks getting there? What is the roadmap that they're using to get there? So first and foremost, I think companies And it really it surprises me. There's some larger companies that I've run into that have this very same problem. They actually have objectives, but they're not the right objectives. And so you have to go in and dive deep into it, like I said, through the discovery process, and find out exactly what it is that they want to do. And surprisingly enough, there are a lot of people that just don't know what it is, what are the clear objectives that need to be set in order for their folks to achieve. And that's where I kind of start off again. It's the discovery process that helps me determine what it is that they're looking for in terms of improvement.
So do you have a quick example of that problem there? Like if someone like you said, if they might have objectives, but they're not the right ones, like what does that look like exactly?
So I'll give you an example of a call center that I had done some work for in the past. So, one of the things that they were emphasizing is where our customer service levels are not where we want them to be. But at the same time, they were pushing very hard on their call handling times being, a particular, had to meet a particular time in which the calls are being handled with the representatives. And so, it really kind of came down to, if you want the service to get better, then perhaps you need to go ahead and lighten up on the call handling times, because the representatives at the end of the day were feeling like they couldn't handle the customer's issues and problems in the manner that the customer desired if they were being pressed on meeting these call handling objectives that they had. So, it came down to making a decision. What's more important? Is it more important that your call handling be at a particular level, or is your customer service more important? Well, the answer to both of those questions was both. And we had to kind of work with the representatives to kind of build a more conducive script for them to handle both issues, right? You can't ramble and start going down the road on all kinds of different things with the customer on the call, because you needed to meet these call times. But at the same time, you needed to be more intentional in getting to the problem that the customer had without being robotic, right? So that we couldn't lose the interpersonal effectiveness, but we had to be more intentional in getting them there. So at the end of the day, got the call center to lighten up a little bit on the call handling numbers in order to allow their representatives to actually provide the service level that they wanted to have provided. So sometimes you get people to see that they have to be flexible in their approach in order to get what they want. And at the end of the day, they got both of them achieved. So it was a good meeting point for them.
Well, fantastic. Well, that makes a lot of sense that we might have these targets that we want to hit, and then we might need someone like you to come in and say, well, this goal that you have, this metric, you don't want to just throw it away, but maybe dial it back on the priority a little bit and have something better. And what you're making me think of is I had a friend a bunch of years ago who had a help desk system, and he was measuring his team based on how many bugs the software had. Like, it was a team of programmers, and then so if a programmer added a certain feature to software, he said, well, if this programmer had 20 bugs and this other programmer had 10 bugs, we're going to reward the programmer with 10 bugs. And it turned out that the reason why some of the programmers had less bugs in the software because they were going around the system. They didn't want to log that they had the bugs because they wanted to get the better score, which was in turn sort of just messing things up and totally corrupting everything. And it seems like some of these kinds of problems might not be easily apparent if we're too close to the problem. You might need someone like you to come with an outside perspective to mix things up a little bit.
And it's interesting that you say that, because, different eyes certainly can make a difference in terms of what the issue is. And just going back to the example that I used with the dentist's office, they did not realize until I came in that the problem was them. Right. And so, once they kind of found out that they were the issue in terms of the leadership and what it is that they were doing, they had people in the organization that were aligned with one partner, and half of the other folks were aligned with another partner. And so, once they got on the same page and they were sending the same coherent message out, it changes a lot of things. But they wouldn't have known that had they not brought somebody in from the outside to look at it.
Yeah, they need the wake-up call or the tough love or whatever you want to call it. So when you're talking about that you help these different organizations, I mean, who do you help specifically? Is it some people like only in the Sacramento area, or is it specific industries? Like how do if some company's listening to this today, how do they know that you're the guy to reach out to?
Well, so, currently most of the clientele that I have gotten since I left corporate America and launched Respectology has been on the local level in the Sacramento area. I am starting to speak outside of the area now, and so I'm starting to garner some interest from people that hear me speak in other regions. The thing about it is that I work with anybody that has frontline employees that deal with customers, that deal with the public. I do believe that is universal. As I mentioned, if you can begin to deal with customers more as guests than as customers, it changes a whole lot of things. And so any company that deals with the public that has frontline employees, I feel like I can bring in a perspective that can perhaps help them differentiate themselves from other people. I'm fond of saying to folks that I work with that, internal interactions are going to reflect external interactions. And oftentimes what ends up happening is customers and businesses aren't aware that their internal customer or their internal employee is just as important as the external customer. And so it's a cultural thing sometimes. If you want to make some changes, just realize that what your employees internally are experiencing are going to be what your customers externally are experiencing. You can't necessarily separate the two.
All right. Well, that's a great message. So if people are listening to our conversation here today and they're really impressed with Mr. Brian Baker and they want to find out more about you, do you have some contact information or some resources or links you want to share today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Robert. So as Robert said, the name of my business is Respectology. My website is www.respectology. Think Aretha Franklin, RESPECT. OLOGY now.com. You can come to my website, visit it, check it out, peruse it a little bit. You can look at our services. We're in the midst of upgrading some of the things on the website. I actually have a free communication assessment that's on the homepage that is available to you if you'd like to go on and take it. It's a listening assessment. It's really just something for people to kind of see where they are in terms of the listening scale. I also do a monthly tip sheet on social and emotional intelligence, so you're free to sign up for that on my website as well on the homepage. I also welcome you to take a look at a TED Talk that I did a few years ago when I was with AT&T. I actually did a TED Talk at a TED event the company held, and it was entitled Manners Matter, Recapturing the Lost Art of Civility. So, I'm passionate that manners and courtesy and respect have a lot to do with productivity and employee engagement and results and performance. And so that talk, I think that a lot of people will find it very, very interesting. But if you're interested in my services, please go on, send me an email or call me directly at area code 916-834-0292. I love to sit down, have a conversation with you and see if I could be of some service.
Well, fantastic. Well, if this message resonates with you, if you think that you needed Brian's help yesterday, then do yourself a favor and reach out to him. That's area code 916-834-0292. The TED Talk is called Manners Matter, and the website where you can get that free communication assessment and monthly tip sheet is respectologynow.com. So thanks so much, Brian, for stopping by and for telling us what we need to know about just getting things more organized, having a better system, and for, fixing problems before they become problems. That way we can have a smoother business and we have something that differentiates against our competitors. So this is all really great stuff. So thanks for sharing it.
Robert, appreciate being on your show, man. Thank you very much.
Heck yeah. Do you want a podcast like this one? Well, what's been holding you back? What if it was easy and you had someone to help you get it going? Check out doneforyoupodcasting.com, where we'll handle some or all of your podcast setup, production, marketing, and more. See you soon at doneforyoupodcasting.com.